This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Mettle Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they could still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great. They're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Mettle Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website and get started on the journey to a more confident and successful athlete with Mental Mettle Coaching. And welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and I am here with my guest today, Lauren Getz. I'm going to do my best to say Lauren Getz and not Lauren Anderson, but I'm going to do my best, Lauren. I say that because I've known Lauren for, I don't know, it's been a while now. I was a teacher and administrator at the school. Lauren was a high school graduate at Deer Creek, Mackinac, and Lauren was, I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I know you're gonna hate all this stuff, but she easily probably the best, one of the best high school athletes I've ever seen, and certainly the best that came out of Deer Creek Mackinac. You've had such a phenomenal career there, and then on into college. And I just thought, I love having athletes on to talk about mental toughness. And then the reason I told Lauren, why I wanted you on here is I want to talk about your playing days, how you developed mental toughness, what you know about it, what you realize it, and now you're just a boring working person. And I talk about it all the time on what is so important about athletics is that it helps us develop some skills to overcome adversity when it's not life or death, right? And not that your job is life or death now, but it's you know what I'm saying though. You as you get into being an adult and being a productive member of society, like some things you don't think about it at the time whenever you're a kid, but things matter more than winning and losing a game, right? You got to have you got a relationship, you got a husband, you got a family, you're working on growing, you've got a job. Those you suddenly realize that those things are really important. So that's what I want to talk about today. That's our goal. And but yeah, so it's good to talk to you. It's been a while. How are you doing, Lauren?
It's been pretty good. Yeah, we haven't been up in, I think, a little over a year, but it's been a good adjustment graduating from school, which the last time we talked, I was still kind of working through my clinicals and just adjusting to, like you said, being a productive member of society, working every day, maintaining my relationship with my husband and our home and just our life outside of it. So it's been good.
Yeah, that's good. And I want to tell a little story. We're going to get into some of your accomplishments in high school, and college, which I know you're going to hate talking about yourself and stuff, but that's okay. We gotta the people that don't know you. I want them to know how awesome you were. But I will tell you the first time that I saw you play and first time I met you, and I really didn't meet you. We had just moved into the district. I think you were in 7th or 8th grade. You guys were playing volleyball, and my wife, being a volleyball player, was like, "Hey, I want to go. I've heard the volleyball program at this town is pretty good, and I hear the junior high is in I think you guys were in the state tournament down there in Assumption, right?"
Yeah.
And my wife's from down that area, and she's like, "I'd like to go watch." And I'm like, that's not really what I wanted to go do on what was like a weekend. I'm like, I don't really want to go watch junior high girls that I don't know playing volleyball. I was just like, I those things going on. I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. It's fine. And I had my mind on what it was going to be like. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, they should not be this good. And I remember watching you playing as a 7th or 8th grader. And I'm like, I have not seen much junior high volleyball, but this Anderson girl is really good, I think. And I'm looking at my wife. I'm like, what do you think? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, all right. So, I don't know. You guys probably won the state tournament that year, didn't you?
We won in 7th and then got second in 8th grade.
Okay. And then the story continued in high school because what all did you win in high school? I'll make you say it.
We won the IHSA state finals my sophomore and senior year, and then we got 3rd place in state my junior year.
Yeah. And I would say, and it's fair to say that you're probably the leading everything on all 3 of those teams.
Yes, in all 3 seasons.
Yeah. So outside hitter, the go-to, you wrote here some of your stuff for the program records in high school: single season kills, single season aces, career kills, career digs, and career aces. So you had a decent high school career.
Yeah, it was pretty decent.
Yeah, it was really good. And I loved watching you play. You were really good at it. And what I'd want to know is, as I watched you play, not only were you a really good athlete and you got things done, I really enjoyed watching you play because of your attitude. You seem to be very mentally tough. I can't ever remember. Yes, fiery, like you got after it and excited, but I didn't ever see it in like aimed at the wrong way. I didn't see you aimed like that fire that you had a little bit aimed at your coach or an official or negatively at a player, right? So you were a fun player for me to watch. And what I'd like to know start with is, where did some of that come from? Because some of it's genetic or some of it's natural. Like coaches, this podcast is a lot for coaches on how to develop it, but I'd like to know what, even back then when you're playing in junior high and high school, what was your mindset when playing athletics?
I think there was never a moment that I just wasn't locked in on, hey, I'm going to compete this day in practice. We are going to compete in this game. It didn't matter if it was tryouts or the state final. It was treated the same. Like I just wanted to compete, and I have always hated to lose. There is something with that. Like, yeah, I love winning and being competitive, but I don't like accepting defeat. And I think that was the big driving factor between being locked in and being competitive, is that I want to show that we're the best. Even if we're not the best physically, like mentally, we are going to overcome whoever's in front of us.
I think a lot of people hate to lose, but they don't all show up every day locked in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't even know if you know how to distinguish how you were different from others. But again, a lot of people hate to lose, but not everybody actually shows up with that attitude and what it takes.
Yeah, that's tough to describe, because even thinking back to like junior high, how you asked, is that to me, there was just never another option. Like I was going to go in 110%, despite whether it was a homework assignment or a volleyball game, whichever it was. I never considered the other alternative, which I think there are people that are there for fun, and that's great. That's what they want. But for me, that's not what I wanted out of it.
Yeah. At what, and I can assume that this goes on to how you were in college as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, because I know less about your high school career because I wasn't there watching the whole thing, but tell me a little bit about your high school career or your college career.
Yeah. So college career, we came in as a freshman class and really came onto a really talented team. Another freshman and myself were the two starting outsides on a team of mostly juniors and seniors, I'd say. But we jumped right in, and it was the same environment. It's like from day one, open gyms in the summer without coaches even there. We're winning regular season. We're going to the NCAA tournament. That's the only goal that we have. So that environment was great to jump into. And our freshman year, we won the regular season title. We played UCLA in the first round of the NCAA tournament, which was great. And then the same thing, our sophomore year, we lost some starters, but we just had girls step right back into it. And we were able to win again and then go back to the tournament.
So, and I noticed your note here. You started every game for 4 years.
Every match,
at,
yeah.
Every match at Lipscomb.
Every single match, yeah.
That can't happen very often.
It doesn't.
No,
I think my coach mentioned there's maybe a handful of athletes when he's been there, and he's been there for probably 20 years, that have started every match.
So you've got an extremely accomplished junior high career, high school career, and college career. We're talking 10 years straight of being locked in.
Mm-hmm.
What's like? That sounds that sounds exhausting. And the thing is, somebody who doesn't know you is probably like, okay, well, she was probably not always locked in. She's just saying that, and I'm telling you, it's not. I know you're not lying.
Yeah.
So because I've seen it, but my question is, isn't that exhausting?
It was, absolutely. I think by the time I got into college, and it's just every level, it's another level of locked in. It's another level of competition that just gets better and better. By the middle of my college career, I was like, this is not easy to do anymore. Whereas before, it's just what I did. But then you had to actually mentally prepare yourself for practice and for a match, whereas before it was just what I did. But it is exhausting.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you make. I think that even if you hadn't been locked in high school, I'm not saying you would have won 2 state championships, but you still would have been really good, right? If you'd just I feel like you could have, just with some genetic gifts and some coaching, you probably still would have been pretty good, right? But you were just on your own. But in college, you noticed that you actually okay, I'm going to have to do this, right? And I feel like that happens to everybody at some point, right? When did you start to notice that? And then what changes did you have to make when it got really hard?
Yeah, when it got really hard, I think after practices or games, taking time to reflect, and really truly separating myself from not my teammates, but taking the time to okay, how did this go? What could I have done better? How was my attitude this game? And then going into either the next game or the next practice. I mean, you knew what time it would be. If it was at 2:00 in the afternoon, I mean, even before lunch, it's okay, what do we want to bring into practice today? How are we going to compete today?
Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching. Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they could still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great. They're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Mettle Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website and get started on the journey to a more confident and successful athlete with Mental Mettle Coaching.
So in order to prepare for practices or games, I couldn't just show up anymore. I mean, I could, but in order to actually take it to the next level, it took time beforehand to just process like, okay, what are we going to do in this match? How are we going to compete? Who are we going to go after? And just the mental prep for it. And then even after games and practices, taking time to reflect on, hey, how did I do today? How was my attitude? Was I in 100% of the time? Or did I take a play off here or there? And so just really taking time and space to reflect on that helped just to take it to the next level and continue to compete at the highest level.
Who helped you decide that you needed to do that? Did you have any tools? Like, where did you get the idea that I need to start mentally preparing and I need to start mentally dissecting what I did? Where'd you come up with that?
A lot of it was just our team culture and my coach talking about it too. Like, hey, we have this coming up tomorrow. Like, let's take the time to think about it and prepare about it. Whereas before in junior high and high school, I think I had some coaches say that and I didn't think twice about it because I just knew, hey, here's what we're going to do. But that next level of competition requires more from you in order to compete at the highest level. So that was already there. And then I had some great assistant coaches in college. We had a couple, but every one of them were very in-depth too, like even between drills and practice, like, hey, what did you think about this? And just constantly trying to get us to process and think through like, oh yeah, that was really good. Or maybe this next drill, we need to do this differently.
Like actually like thinking about the mental side of stuff.
Yes. Not just
right.
Working through it or walking through it.
Yeah. And I think that's I know that you're a volleyball player and not like some meathead football player. No offense to meathead football players. Right. But I don't think it matters what the sport is. It's if you're not thinking about preparation or thinking about what you need to do better, I think you're missing a big part of how you can improve.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just the reflection and the preparation, like you said, that alone from yourself helps you improve, but then inviting other people into it too, like your teammates or your coaches, just provides a different perspective as well to challenge you a little bit more.
Yeah. And you mentioned that when it gets to the next level that you kind of need that. And I agree wholeheartedly, but I think that it depends on the individual. Like I think some people need that sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, some people need that. At some point in your career, you have to make that decision, and it does start to get tough. And it's just a matter of when for some people.
So when you start talking about things got a little bit harder, right? Like I want to hear about, because I don't know of many. I want to hear talking about some Lauren. I almost said it. Okay. I want to see some. Well, it was Lauren Anderson at the time, so it'll work. I want to hear some Lauren Anderson failures. Okay. I know you hate failures, and I know you hate losses, but we learn a lot from our failures, and I want to know, where did you struggle? I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. Just in general, or more so like into college when it got difficult?
You know what, wherever you want to go. We can go general, but if you go general, I'm gonna dig specific. So you might as well go whichever way you want to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing that I experienced was in college having some difficult relationships with teammates, and trying to be on the same page and not being on the same page. And that led to a lot of disagreements and just some tension between the team and on the court. And I feel like there were some circumstances with that were out of my control, but things that were in my control was how I chose to show up for myself and for my team. And there were definitely matches where I didn't feel like I wanted to be there because of some of these tensions and disagreements, but I still wanted to show up. I still wanted to compete. I didn't want to sit on the sidelines. So that was hard. There were definitely games where I was 100% in with what I had that day, but it wasn't as much as I would prefer to give to the team. So that is the big theme in college. That's what I really struggled with, was how to show up when it is really hard. And there is maybe some disagreements and just not everything is on the same page. How you choose to approach the game, how you choose to play the game, it requires even more effort in those circumstances.
Yeah, I talk a lot to athletes about you do have to figure out distinguish what you can control and what you can't, right? So, and you said it perfectly. We can't control what others think or do, but we can control our reaction to it.
Yeah.
But that said, like what somebody else says and does, it does affect us.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It does. And it's, I don't want to say that you just have to accept it sometimes, but like you said, I love that you said I was locked in and I was coming in with everything I had that day, but you also realized it wasn't everything that I wish I had.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was a pretty common theme, I think, my sophomore and junior year, because that's when it really started to just crank up with that and become more difficult. But like you said, there's times where what people say or think, you just brush it off. But then when it's your team captains or people who are older than you on the team saying these things, and it's not just one person, then it's like the mental side of it gets hard. Is this true? How do I dissect this? Is part of this true? Part of this not? And how you handle that personally and then move it forward with the team too was a really big challenge.
Well, let's be honest. Like, oh, Lauren, I love you to death. But like you said, when you show up every day 100%, not everybody responds to that well.
No, and I think that was a big reason why.
I don't even know the story, and I'm telling you that's the why. That's the reason, is because I know the way you go, and like as we listen to it, and you're like, oh, I 100% lock in every day, and you're a coach's dream, but it causes like friction between people who don't want to show up every day.
Yeah, that's definitely, looking back at it, I think you hit it on to a T. That is where it stems from, and where there continued to be disagreements throughout my career until those teammates graduated.
Yeah, and it's a coaching idea that I work with whenever we talk about people. One of the times that we really get upset, right, and we're not feeling ourselves, which it feels like that those couple years you're like, I'm not being my true self there, is when we're not allowed to honor our values, right? Mm-hmm. And if your value is I'm going to show up every day 100% and I don't care, and then you get pushback from teammates about showing up like that, it's a difficult situation.
Yeah, it's a fine line of like, I don't feel like I need to change how I show up because I am locked in and that's what I'm bringing to this team. But at the same time, there's a team dynamic that you play into, and like, how do I help that dynamic? It was a sticky situation.
How did it end up?
Can you clarify more? How did it end up?
I'm just saying, like, what was the end result? Was it just like, oh, they just had to graduate and then everything was fine?
Yeah, they had to graduate and it did get better. But I still think, so for 2 seasons, we walked through that. They graduated and I went into my senior year. And so I still had 2 years of functioning in that dynamic that I was really struggling to work out of. Even with those teammates gone, like when you function like that for so long, it's your routine. And we did have a new assistant coach that year and some new leaders who were very helpful in like wanting to understand, hey, like, why is this going on? Whereas before it was just not talked about. So it was really challenging. I wish I had another year after that to see how things went. But
Yeah.
at that point, it was just exhausting. Like you said, mentally, I needed a break. Physically, I needed a break.
What's the looking back? What's the takeaways? It's like, what could I have? What do you think you could have done different? What did you learn from it? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think I could have stood up for myself more. Being a young underclassman, having these upperclassmen talk to me like this, I didn't feel like I was heard. And so I think I wish I would have spoken for myself more and not allowed myself to fit into the mold that they had created for me. And big lesson is just from that, because I feel like for so long I didn't speak up about it and I just kind of let it go and continue to do my thing, that even when it's hard, you have to talk or bring somebody else in and not just struggling in silence because you're only hurting yourself at that point.
Yeah, it's, and I so appreciate you bringing this up. And I know I asked, and you're on the podcast, and I'm asking, but I appreciate you bringing it up because it's from like when we read all your accolades and everything, it's easy to just be like, it's easy, right? It's easy, and it's never easy. There's anytime you're doing like sports are adversity, and you're trying to beat other teams, and people have different ideas on how to go about that. There's coaches, there's teammates, and there's always internal struggle within teams. And it's if you're not addressing that, like you said, if you're not addressing some of those issues, it can spin out of control quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. You can get yourself in a really deep hole that is hard to get out of.
Yeah. I want to tell a little bit of a story. Like you got done, and I know at some point you got an invitation to try out for the U.S. Olympic team. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's a whole nother level.
It is an entire new level.
What was that like?
It was so fun. The experience as a whole was just surreal. The tryouts were at the Colorado Springs campus. So being at an Olympic training facility, I was just walking around in awe. Like, this is so cool where all of these historic athletes have trained and competed, and I get to be here. But then even just the tryouts themselves every day, every session that you showed up to was just another level of like, everybody's locked in because everybody wants to make this team.
Oh yeah.
You get to be in the gym with Coach Karai, who is, an American legend in volleyball.
Yeah.
That didn't go out as well as I anticipated, just the tryout itself, but the experience was amazing. And seeing the highest level athletes across the country, we were all there training and playing together. It was really fun.
It's amazing. No matter how far you go and how well you do, there's always another level that's going to like humble you at some point, right?
Absolutely. I think it was, as fun as it was even harder. One, because it's a higher level. It's the best of the best in the country. But then you're playing constantly in a new rotation of 6 people you have never played with before. So there is another level of that mental preparation and the toughness that's like, okay, I've never played next to you before. I don't know what kind of system you guys run, but we're still in this together.
Yeah. So just a phenomenal. When did you try out for that?
That was my sophomore year of college. So 2017.
Okay. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet.
So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle.
Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they could still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great. They're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Mettle Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website and get started on the journey to a more confident and successful athlete with Mental Mettle Coaching.
Yeah.
All right. And then, so you get done, you graduate, and you go from, I don't know, 10 years of volleyball playing all the time to just stopping.
Yeah.
So how did you handle that? Because a lot of athletes struggle with that, right?
Yeah, it was hard. I think I found myself with a lot of just feeling very anxious, like I'm not doing enough. My 45-minute workout wasn't good enough because we used to lift for 3 hours in college. Like accepting
Right.
that it's different and they're both still good. But I think it was honestly pretty easy to just transition that focus from sports and athletics into graduate school and the job that I'm in now. Is it still the same goal? Like I still want to compete. Now I'm competing against myself, not against another team. And just working towards something that I want to work towards for my career.
Yeah, I see a lot of athletes struggle when they get out of it, or, I mean, they're just locked into the identity, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm a volleyball player, right? And now I'm not. Or what's even worse, Lauren, let's say a situation like, because I see this a lot of times, like you see an athlete in like like you were in your sophomore, junior year of college, where it's like, you could have gone the other way. You're like, it's not even worth it. I don't even want to do this anymore, but I don't know what else to do because that's what I am.
No, I think that's something that I had to work through in college when it was really difficult for those 2 seasons, was separating myself from, like, yeah, I play volleyball, but finding other passions outside of volleyball, finding other friend groups and things to be involved in. I think that really helped my transition after college volleyball, having walked through that a little bit before. And I think it helped too that after graduating, I was still involved for a little bit in volleyball with coaching for a year. And then, I mean, playing some pickup around the area.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. But then after that, when I started physical therapy school, I think I was finally to the point where I was like, volleyball was a chapter in my life and I'm so thankful for that, but I'm ready to start this new chapter. So I had a couple of years to prep for that and that transition, just to know that this is what I used to do. It's part of who I am, but it's not all that I am.
Yeah. It's a difficult thing for a lot of people, especially when you're going to go play high level somewhere. It takes all of you to succeed at that.
Yeah.
And then you don't have anything left to give to anything else. So you aren't anything else. It's a difficult,
exactly.
It's hard to do.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
What, just out of curiosity, like these new hobbies that you're picking up, are they competitive? Are you like out there destroying people at like, I don't even know what it is?
I don't know that I really do like competitive things anymore against other people.
Yeah.
I've really learned to enjoy like the slowing down, which I never thought that I would. But whenever I would play pickup or like intramural sports in PT school, we had some teams. That was really fun. And it was like the competitive edge comes out, or a competitive edge when we're playing a family game of Catan, like that can get there.
That cannot be sitting around playing Catan with your brother and Jim is it cannot. I mean, do things get broken?
One time, every time we play, I always get to the end and I'm like 1 point away from winning, and everybody knows it, so then they don't let me win. And it frustrates me so much. The first time my husband ever played with us, I must have stormed off afterwards and came back.
Oh.
And he was like, "Did you just go punch a hole in the wall?"
He had no idea what he was getting into, did he?
Oh,
that's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. So back to the reason I wanted to get on, and I love to talk about this whole thing about the struggles you had and your accolades and how you've done it. One of the things that I preach is that when I work with athletes, if they're struggling with the mental side of sports, it's not a good indicator for how they're going to handle life moving forward, right? It's like when I work with an athlete, it's not because I want them to win more games, right? I work with them because it's like you are in the middle of a pursuit that you love, you're supposed to enjoy, but you're full of anxiousness and lack of confidence. It's like, we have to figure that out because there's going to be other things you like in life, your family, your job, things like that, that you can't handle. Like the more we love something, the more it can make us anxious, and we have to be able to deal with that. So what is it that you've taken from volleyball playing days to, your work life now?
Yeah, I think looking back when I first started, you're just trying to figure it out. Like you're trying to make it through every day. You feel like you're just keeping your head above water. But after a couple of months and just getting accustomed to like your coworkers, the environment, then it was natural to carry over some of those tendencies. Just like teaching opportunities. And that's what part of playing sports and coaching is its guidance and teaching. So taking opportunities with coworkers to provide some teaching and guidance, like, hey, have you tried this with a patient before? Or vice versa, talking to a coworker and saying, like, I'm really struggling with this. What kind of ideas do you have? So relating it back to sports, maybe even after a drill or a certain skill, you're like, hey, I'm really struggling with digging this ball to my right side. Like, how can we work on this? And just inviting others in to help you with that. So that was really helpful just in refining how you are and like the knowledge that you have. It makes you better.
Yeah, I love that idea of when you're talking about it stems from the struggles, right? It's like, oh, here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what we need to do differently. Yeah. Right. And not seeing. And so for somebody, a self-proclaimed person who hates to lose, which I get. Yeah. You're also at the same time telling me that it's the struggles that are what I'm focusing on to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. You hate to lose and you don't want to fail, but you're not going to grow without that. And so, like you said,
it's such a terrible irony, isn't it?
It is. It's like, why do I have to do this? But that's the only way you're going to grow and get better is acknowledging your struggles. And then I think just the vulnerability of it too, as an athlete, asking for guidance from your coaches, your teammates, carries over with your coworkers, just saying like, hey, I can acknowledge that this is something I need to be better at, which takes a lot of courage, but then you will actually get better by doing that.
Well, yeah. And then you're opening yourself to be coachable, which is, I think it's a great, like, my wife will say that all the time when she's doing, when she's taking interviews in from young people coming in, and she's like, she always looks down and see what jobs they had when they were younger, but she'll look at some that don't even have jobs, but they played like high level volleyball or basketball or something like that. And she's like, give me
I'll take them all day long
Yeah.
because I know that they've had to work towards a goal. They have had to have been coachable, and they know how to take criticism and get better at things.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm trying to do. I want to work with athletes so that they can, like, it's hard, right? It's everybody goes through it at some point where it's like, this would be easier in my life if I just didn't do this. But there's a lot to be gained from putting yourself through the adversity of athletics.
Yeah. Your life is a lot richer by going through the adversity of athletics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked a question. I said, hey, what does mental toughness mean to you? And you gave an answer that I've never heard before. I like it. But it said, you wrote something about it's how you perceive your environment. And I love that.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
There's different perceptions to everything. And that's something that I've been learning more and more recently through work and just personal relationships. But your environment and even just how you've been shaped throughout your life, like every reaction that you've had, every interaction you've had, every loss, every failure, every win shapes your unique perspective. And so regardless of the environment or situation, the same thing could happen and you and I can perceive it totally differently of, hey, what happened here? Was it successful? Was it not successful? And that is different for everybody. So that's why mental toughness it's unique. It's a skill. It's based on your life circumstances. What's happened to you is going to factor in what lens you look at your situation through.
I love that. And I always think about that whenever you're like, if I'm watching a basketball game, or you could do it with volleyball. And it's like, you could get up against a team 20-10, right? And you're like, okay, we're rolling on this, right? And we're gonna make it. And then they score 10 in a row, right?
Yeah.
And it's 20-20. The team that just lost 10 points is in a lot of trouble, right? Because they're like, we had it, we were gonna win. We had it and we let it go, and the coach is calling timeouts and trying to, and it's completely different. Like if you were able to take yourself out of that moment and just say, forget about the fact that we just gave up 10 points. It's tied 20-20. We need 5 more points to win. It's a chain. Your perception on the situation makes every bit of difference.
Absolutely. It makes a difference on the next play, your whole team's attitude, your attitude. Like you said, if you're focusing on, hey, we just had a 10-point run and we lost it, then, I mean, the momentum's still in their court. But if you're like, hey, it's 0-0, it is a race to 5, we take 1 point at a time, 2 completely different perspectives. And honestly, I don't know how else to word it, but like, not that you have the momentum, but you are like locked in again. It's not focused on, we were just down or up by 10, now we're equal. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's the next point.
Yeah. It's easy for us to say here in the studio, right? As we're doing it, but it makes such a difference if you're able to do it. And to me, when you said that about it's how you perceive your environment in response to an adverse situation or circumstance, it makes all the sense in the world, right? Because if you're able to pull yourself out of, forget what just happened. Yeah. Even if it's good or bad, right? Yeah. Forget what just happened. What do I need to do right now? It's that, and that's where that term mindfulness comes in. That mindfulness is being present in the moment. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about the past. Being locked in. So yeah, we're coming full circle on your idea of just being locked in, which is, it's a great idea. It's easier to say, hard to do. Yeah.
That's something that one of my best coaches of all time that I had my junior year of high school, for travel volleyball was always like, okay, we're going to focus on the next ball. It's the next point. And just, I mean, if you focus on the past, it's not going to be great. But when you focus on the future and just what you can do now, I think that's where that growth and that improvement and like, okay, I struggled with this, we're going to change it on this play, all helps come together.
Oh, most of most of our anxiety and worry comes from things that, like a mistake that we just made or something we're worried about happening that's too far in the future. And being able to get away from that and just focus on what I need right now is, again, it's the key to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, last question here for you. I always ask this. What did I not ask you that I should have?
It's a great question. Put me
It is.
Wow.
I love the question. It is hard, but what did we not talk about that I should have?
I just go back to when you originally reached out to me about joining this, is how the mental toughness, you say you work with your athletes on this a lot, like with their sport, but it's also for the rest of their life. So maybe going a little bit more into, here's, your experience with sports, but then like, how has this applied? How have you applied this into your life, or this into work, or this into relationships? If that's something that you like to work on with your clients.
Absolutely. I'd love to, like, give me some more stuff then.
Yeah.
What is it that you've learned from being a competitor and an athlete that you feel like guides you through your day to day? There you go. That's a good way to phrase that. Let's go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think a big part of it too is just like, as an athlete, taking pride in your program. The name on the front of your shirt or your jersey, that's who you're playing for. And all of a sudden that changes when you're not an athlete. Now it's like, okay, who's my employer? Or at home, like, I'm doing this for my family. So keeping that in mind and not just being in it for yourself. But then that helps hold you to a higher standard of, okay, if I'm representing this company for my work, then I need to do X, Y, or Z. If I'm representing or just helping my home at home, like, I'm not in it just for me. I want to help everybody around me. So at work, I can think of just taking pride in like your work environment and your desk, keeping it organized, making it look, not just making it look presentable, but when you do represent your company, if someone were to walk by your desk, are they going to see wrappers and trash and stuff thrown everywhere? Are they going to see like, oh, she's got this for this patient or this for this situation? And just taking pride in your environment. Like, if you see something on the floor, pick it up and throw it away. If there's some weights left out in the gym, clean it up. It's the same as with like when your coach yells at you to shag. You got to look in every corner of the gym to make sure you get every ball and get everything put away at the end of practice. So just carrying that over also makes your coworkers hold themselves to a higher standard too, without even saying anything. If they see someone like, oh, her desk is really clean, or man, she's really cleaning up after everybody, like, I should do that too. It just boosts the environment for everybody too.
Yeah. That reminds me, when you're talking about making things look neat and picking things up, when you guys were in high school, you guys had, I don't know which coach it was, but like, did you guys go into the bleachers after you won a state tournament and start picking up trash?
I don't know if we did after the state finals, but every other game we did. Every game, whether it was home or
every game.
Every game. We went and helped pick up trash in the bleachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. It was before I was doing all this stuff, and I was like, I really didn't understand what it was about at the time. I thought it was just trying to keep you humble, but it's not that. It's that helping others.
Yeah.
Honoring the sport, honoring the venue, all that stuff. And it's a whole lot of gratitude.
Oh yeah. And just respect for everybody that's there, whether it's your home gym or an away gym, and those that help take care of it, just helping them. I mean, it takes maybe 5 minutes to have the whole team go do that, but it makes a bigger impact than that 5 minutes did.
Oh, it was great. I can remember, again, I can't remember if you did it after the state finals, but I can remember you guys would be in big gyms with lots of people there, and everybody's wanting to talk to you after the games, and you guys are walking around picking up trash. And it was just fantastic. I loved it.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe that's where it's coming from when you're talking about making sure you no, I'm sure that's part of it. So the last thing I just got to know, like, you got the nursery ready? Is it all
It's all ready.
I figured.
There's one thing left that I need some help with for my husband, but everything else is good. It involves volleyball, and I don't really want to do that. So
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah.
So you're real close to being able to take all these things that you've learned and
Yeah.
these values and stuff and start to apply it with your family. And that's just, I'm so excited for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Lauren, it's been great. I enjoy the conversation as always talking to you. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
You bet. Thanks, Lauren.
You're welcome.
Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle.
Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching. So Lauren Getz she's going to be a phenomenal employee in her career. She's going to be a phenomenal wife. She's going to be a phenomenal mother. I don't ever question that. Not just because because I already knew her and I just know what kind of person she is, but I know because of what type of competitor she is, how mentally tough she is, and just what she's been through, how she's improved, how she takes negatives and her struggles and turns them into positives and is constantly trying to get better. So I don't have any doubts with her winning the game of life because she's been winning and she knows how to win and she knows how to compete and how she gets better. So I don't have any questions on her being just a successful member of society, right? I don't have any questions to that. And as we picked up, as you hear about that in that podcast, like her accolade, she was crazy. Like one of the best high school athletes I have ever seen, or unbelievable athlete. Just her high school career was phenomenal. Her college career was phenomenal. And it would have been easy, and that's why I really wanted to dig into that a little bit. It was easy to watch her in high school and just know. And we had a good volleyball team. There was some good programs around, but Lauren was better than everybody else. I mean, in high school, she has been better at everybody at at that Deer Creek Mackinac, which is known for its volleyball. She's the best hitter and best back row at digging. That she's the best on both, and that usually doesn't happen. I mean, she's just an unbelievable all around volleyball player. Had she played basketball, had she played softball, like she would have been good at that, but she really focused on volleyball. As good as she was, she hit a point where she struggled. We all hit a point where we struggle. Whatever the endeavor is, whatever the sport is, doesn't matter. Not everybody, some people hit it in junior high, some people hit it in high school, some people hit it in college, some people hit it in pros, right? It just, there's so many factors. I talk about these factors all the time. Like there's genetic factors, a lot of it's genetic, right? Genetic factors, just your upbringing, things like that, that some people just have a leg up when it comes to, athletic competitions. If you're into basketball and if you are, genetically, you're going to be 6'7" and quick and strong, you're going to be like, some of basketball is going to be easier than for you, right? And it goes with every sport like that. But we all get to a point where we struggle. We all hit it. And it can be for different reasons. Lauren, it wasn't the physical ability. It was some team dynamics that may or may, it's not saying it was her fault, but the team dynamics are always a mix. And, some of the things I work with coaches, a lot of times we talk about team cancers and how, these different ways that we respond to conflict can cause issues within a team, and they can tear up a team, and they can cause, as you hear her talk about it, it changed the way she went about playing. Not on purpose, just it changed the dynamic and changed how she was able to show up or not show up for a practice or a game. And that can affect not just your wins and losses. It can, and it will change your wins and losses, but it changes your mindset. She said there were games where she didn't even want to be there, which if you know Lauren, that is so like she loves to compete. So it can affect you. So we all struggle at some point, every athlete, but it doesn't, hers was with team dynamics. It could be a trouble with a coach. It could be you're just not quite there yet. You don't understand the game as much as you thought you did, or the competition's too much for you. There's so many reasons, but we all hit it at some point and struggle a little bit. We all do. It just happens. And they get to a point where your physical ability and your skill set aren't enough. For Lauren in high school, her physical ability and her skill set were more than enough. But when we struggle, a lot of times what we need is we have to tap into that third thing we need to be great and be elite, and that is to work on the mental game. Lauren mentioned that she never really needed to focus on her mental game until she got to college, till she started to struggle with some team dynamics and some other situations. And for a lot of people, when they get to that point where we need mental tools or work on the mental toughness, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to get past that. Our physical abilities aren't enough. Our skill set aren't enough. And we don't have the mental tools to develop those. And we need those mental tools. Lauren was lucky. She mentioned a coach that really focused on making sure they were, looked into situations, tried to figure out what was going on, talked about it together, looked at different practices, figured out what was working, what wasn't, and actually sounded like she had some tools and some ideas to get past that and deal with the mental side of it. And I can hear it in her voice and the words she used. She talked about learning how to focus on the controllables. I talked to her a little bit about the values and understanding what your values are. I'm sure it really would have helped her a little bit had she known, about. She was upset because her value is always going in and everything you have. And not everybody is fine with that. They're not all good with that. But I also hear her talking about how learning how to focusing on seeing the positives in the negatives. Obviously something that a coach has worked with her and stuff. She was lucky in that she had a coach that was good with that. Not every kid is going to have that luxury. Not every some coaches are better at X's and O's. Some are better at, recruiting. Some are better at the mental part of stuff. Not all coaches are perfect, right? And some don't have all these tools on tap, and some don't even want to try all that. They just do the physical skills and the skill set, and they don't worry about the mental side, and they just want a kid to do that on their own. And that can happen a lot, especially when we're talking about younger kids in high school. I think that it's not a given that a coach is going to be using all these mental tools and knowing the mental part of the game. They're aware of it, but they're aware of when a kid isn't mentally tough and how it's affecting their team, but they don't necessarily have the tools, right, to develop that mental toughness. And so it just depends. As you're listening to this, if you're a parent, listen to this, or an athlete, just know that at some point you are going to struggle, and you're going to need some mental tools to help you get past that. And you just have to be aware of that. And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're soft. It doesn't mean that you're not tough. It means that athletics are hard, and they're supposed to be, and it's challenging, and we want it to be mentally challenging. And all it means is, as she talked about, the vulnerability there, which is tough. It's tough to be a tough athlete and be vulnerable at the same time. But we have to recognize that and say, okay, I need some mental tools in my toolbox to help me get through situations. I work with it myself all the time as I'm training now with jiu-jitsu and stuff. It's a tough thing. I go and compete, and it's hard to get the voices out of your head, and you have to, these doubts that you have, and I'm so thankful now that I've learned all this stuff, but I can use this on myself, with myself, and these mental tools. And if you aren't finding these mental tools to work on yourself, you are not the best athlete you could be. You're not playing to your full potential. It's the truth. And I think that even an athlete that was so successful as Lauren, like, for her to admit that there were times it was a struggle is a good thing for us all to understand. It doesn't mean that you're not a good athlete, or they're not good because you're struggling, right? That's all part of the gig. It's part of the situation. It's going to happen. Accept that it's going to happen. There's going to be days that it's a struggle. What's important is not to worry about that, what's important is to understand that there's a way out of it, right? That working on our mental game can help you get past that. And when you get to that point where things are a struggle, which it happens to everybody, getting past that struggle and getting over that hump and over that obstacle and saying, okay, I figured out how to conquer that obstacle. I have a new skill now. I can get over that obstacle. That's what we want. That's what we want out of athletics. Is Lauren is as good as an athlete that you can imagine, right? And just an unbelievably talented athlete. Even tried out for the Olympic team, the Olympic volleyball team. She's good, but she's done with volleyball now, right? It ends for all of us. The goal is maybe not to end it prematurely, like to get through that. And then when you get done, feel like you've learned some tools on how to deal with adversity and get over stuff, and just feel like you're a more rounded human being because of the athletics. And if you get to the point where things are a struggle, and I don't want to say just quit, but if you just quit or you can't get over it, that's a shame. Because I'd love to see athletes get past that. And sometimes to be able to do that, you have to have some help on the mental side. If you're not getting that from your athletic coach, find another way to get it. Obviously I have the services I do. I work with athletes all the time on helping them with the mental game, but I'm not the only person out there. You should give me if you're listening to my podcast, at least give me a shot. But it's just a phenomenal
ability to be able to look at adversity and know I have the mental tools to overcome that adversity. It's just it's a great feeling, quite honest. And it is a great recipe for success in life. That's what I want for kids and athletes in these athletic endeavors, is to be able to come out of it and just say, I know I can handle stuff because I've handled stuff. And that's how we get confidence. So yeah, it's a phenomenal episode. I loved talking to Lauren. I love to hear from successful athletes and knowing that even they struggled, finding out how they got out of it, how they dealt with it, and just how we can apply that to ourselves. But then also the benefits of it. Right. Again, she's just going to be a fantastic employee and mom. I just love her to death. Lauren's great. So it's been a great episode. Do me a favor, as always. I just can't thank you enough for listening, but I would thank you even more if you remember to like and share and subscribe. It really helps. And if you ever have any questions or any future guests, I'm all ears. I love getting the ideas for good guests. So I'd love to hear it. So as always, this has been the Mental Mettle Podcast, and I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann. And always remember, forge your mettle.